What's going on, Rooftop Nation? How's everybody doing? You ever heard the old saying, you are what you eat? I know I have, growing up with that. My mom used to harp on that a lot, but I believe there's another level to that saying, which is in the realm of social media, which is in the realm of consumption of content, not just social media, news, print, the way that we consume information in this age that we live in is very, very closely tied to how we navigate the world. It affects our emotional temperature. It affects the way that we regulate our state. It affects our behavior, a whole host of things. You are indeed what you eat when it comes to what you consume in terms of content. I will tell you, during the election, for example, during the presidential election, there are several people who are close to me who were monitoring the election, both sides of the political aisle, mind you, monitoring the election on social media, 24-hour news cycle. And I started to notice the, not just emotional temperature, but the emotional health of those individuals coming off the rails. And like, these are solid performers. These are people that play at the highest level, but you could see their state of mind, their resilience was deteriorating. They were starting to come apart as a result of what they were consuming on a consistent, persistent basis. And at some point, I simply said, time out. You got to stop. Like, you got to stop right now consuming this stuff, because it's going to take you down. The reason that I did that is not because I'm some sage advisor or something like that. You know why? Because I had to do the same thing. When I was operating in Afghanistan, for the longest time, I would watch the 24-hour news cycle in our operation centers, and it started to have an effect on me. It started to, I caught myself operating in friggin' sound bites, you know. But then when I got home and I transitioned to the civilian world and I started going on the news, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, you name it, I started to see the inner workings of the 24-hour news cycle. And I've got friends who are in the 24-hour news cycle. I'm probably not getting any Christmas cards from them, but hey, I think we all know the deal here. I think we all know what the 24-hour news cycle is designed to do. It's the same thing that social media is designed to do. It's designed to compete for your attention. It's designed to take your attention, because agency in this world is where we put our attention, is it not? You know, like, what happens in life is based on where we place our attention. Leadership is the management of energy, yours and those around you. Where you place your attention and your focus is where action occurs. So if you place your attention on Fox News, or you place your attention on CNN, right? Consumerism and capitalism is allowed to flourish in the biggest of ways. And it's all a thing. It's all a thing. It's all by design. If you haven't seen The Social Dilemma, I strongly advise you to watch it, because it is a real eye-opener in how these architects of attention focus our ancient brain, struggling to keep track in this high-tech world, exactly where they want it to focus. And you know what? In these complex, low-trust times, we can't do it. We cannot afford to play that way. Rooftop leaders can't do that. Rooftop leaders have to maintain agency in their arena. They have to maintain autonomy, freedom of thought, latitude, flexibility, dynamic processing. Context is everything. And we can't become so rigid and fixed in anything that we allow ourselves to do that. So I would just ask you to think about the times that we live in right now. I would ask you to think about how quickly the people around you, like that jet ski going behind me, go from fight, flight, or freeze like that. In no time at all, they go from level parasympathetic state to this highly aroused state where they are in fight, flight, or freeze, where fear-based behavior is driving what they do. It's primal. It's below the waterline. And then ultimately that fear, as Mary Kincaid, trauma therapist, says, that fear gives way to the secondary emotion of anger, right? And then anger-based behavior takes over. All of that occurring in the human dynamic. Guess what? The human dynamic, we go into a trance-like state, according to Ivan Terrell of the Human Givens, when we experience high levels of arousal, of emotion, anger, fear. It puts us in a trance-like state. It makes us temporarily stupid, as Terrell says. When we are suffering from anger, at a heightened level of fight, flight, or freeze, or fear, the aperture that we're able to see the world through goes to the size of a soda straw. Our perspective becomes diminished. Our ability to connect to other humans becomes almost non-existent. Why? Because we're focused on surviving, not thriving. Even though we're social animals at this point, the world narrows, the bullets get quiet, and we focus on the fight. That's the danger of fear-based and anger-based behavior. Well, you know what? When you're watching 24-hour news and you see something that happened in the presidential race or with your party or against your party, what happens? You just keep clicking right up, right? You just keep clicking right up until you hit that state of fight, flight, or freeze. And your aperture of perspective becomes the size of a soda straw. And yes, you become temporarily stupid in your ability to navigate the world and to make sense of the broader picture. That's the problem with social media. That's the problem with the 24-hour news cycle. That's the problem with voracious consumption of this kind. You see what I mean? And regardless of what your position is, regardless of how fixed you are in your beliefs, that's fine. But it's like Ian McGilchrist says in his book, The Master and His Emissary, people who operate from these deliberately, certainly fixed positions, the only certainty is that they're certainly wrong. And so as we continue to consume and consume and consume, just remember you're consuming what you're being fed. You're not consuming a blend of things. You are being fed a certain diet, a certain staple. And so you are going to become that, right? And the rigidity and isolation that will start to encompass you is debilitating. And in this time of churn, this time of uncertainty and distrust, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. And so thinking about how we consume things and how our ancient brain is manipulated through that consumption is so critical. And I hope that you'll consider that. Again, I'm asking you to watch The Social Dilemma, Ancient Brains in a High-Tech World, The Distracted Mind by Adam Ghazali is a great book. There's another book by John Zeta. Wes, we need to get the name of that book. We'll put it in here, maybe in the subtitles or something, but it's about the media and how the media construes and manipulates information to us. It's fantastic. He's a former journalist. And then, of course, The Master and His Emissary by Ian McGilchrist. All amazing books on the science of manipulation and how what you consume is really affecting how you show up in terms of information. Okay, a couple of tips. You know, there's no magic formula to this, is there? I mean, we live in a world of information. We live in a world of connection. And many of us, like this one, we run our business on digital platforms. We are a media broadcasting company to help put 10 million rooftop leaders in the world in 10 years. We couldn't do that without social media. We couldn't do that, the play Last Out, without the news. So how do we manage that? Well, I think the first thing is to recognize, the first rooftop leadership skill set in our methodology is to recognize what's below the waterline. Recognize that we are ancient brains in a high-tech world. Recognize that our ancient brains struggle with this kind of information, and where we place our focus is often manipulated by the architects of social media and 24-hour news. So just knowing that can give you a huge advantage. The next thing is, if you can shut it off, I recommend that you do. You know, I've cut out the 24-hour news cycle. I still go on 24-hour news if I'm talking about the film or Afghanistan or something I view of strategic importance, but I don't watch it. I don't watch my segment. I don't watch the news. And if you're gonna watch it, I recommend you have a certain time of day that you watch it, and that's it. Turn it off. And it should be, 5 minutes, a 24-hour news cycle. You've got all the news you need to get. They're creating that stuff every 30 seconds anyway. So my 5-second run on 24-hour news is going to be plenty for you. I'm going to pause right there because I actually burped while I was talking. So just so you know, right here, go back around the 24-hour news mark or at West and just listen. I'll pick back up. But what I will tell you is watch it for 5 minutes and then turn it off. 5 minutes of the 24-hour news cycle is pretty much all you need to cycle through the entire news of the day, or have someone else watch it for you and give you filtered reports. Because it's just not healthy to keep it on in the background. I know a lot of folks keep it on as white noise. It's not white noise. It's actually very influential noise, and it's shaping not just your thoughts, but your emotional temperature throughout the day. Same way with social media. If you're going to go on social media, be specific about it. Avoid scrolling and surfing and the mindless aspects that go with that, where our ancient brain just goes into chimpanzee mode. Try to avoid those things. If you're going to post, post. If you're going to go on there for a specific thing, go on there. Do it in spurts, do it limited, and get off as quickly as you can. And then finally, detoxes are great. If you can get away from that phone, get away from that iPad, that computer screen, get off grid, outside around a fire pit with your kids and your family in the summertime, the fireplace in the wintertime, going camping, getting out in the boat, whatever it is, detoxes for 1, 2, 12 hours, a couple of days is a great reset in your R4 and in your battle rhythm. So there you go. You are what you eat. And in this day and age of distraction, disengagement, and distrust, the consumption of the media and content that's out there can put you in the churn, can put you in the trance, and take you out of the game. I hope this helps. Thanks for what you do, and I'll see you on the rooftop.